Welcome everybody. Is this a new episode of the Tennis Talk where the coaches have voice to talk about what it takes to be a high-performing person? With us, a great coach, a great person is with us today, Liam Smith. Hi, Liam.
Hey, Fernando. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is a privilege.
No, thank you. Thank you to be with us. It's our privilege to have you in this episode in our podcast about the tennis talk, which is for coaches' voices. And also, like I said before, we can talk a lot about what it takes to be a high-performing person, a high-performing player. Let me introduce about Liam to all the audience. Liam is an ATP and WTA coach with more than 20 years working professionally. He was a former coach of top players like Gael Monfils, Coco Gauff, Radua Bolt, Matt Evden, and many, many others. Also, he was a former national head coach for Tennis Australia. He is member of the ATP Coaches Committee, working a lot for our game. And more important, he's a tennis leader. He is someone who is always working to improve our sport. Welcome again to be in the Tennis Talk. Liam, it's a privilege for us.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you, because it's important to talk about the concept, who you are. Who is Liam Smith?
Well, I mean, I guess first of all, I'm just a normal person, but most importantly, I think I'm a person who's very passionate for the game of tennis. Willing to work very hard and to try to be as good a role model, a coach, and a leader as I can be in the sport. And I think it's you know, as a tennis fan as well, you always get excited about the sport, about the new players, about the legends, and just in general. I very much love the game of tennis and everything that there is that goes along with it. Yeah,
very important. And also, you are a great coach. No, how was the process to become a top coach working with top players? But how was, from your vision, how many processes you develop in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long journey for me. I wasn't a top player, so I went through another process, which is sort of becoming a hitting partner, then, you know, coaching in clubs and academies. And I sort of went through every step of the journey, from coaching young junior kids in local and sectional level events through to, you know, junior ITF level, and then the futures and the challengers, and then onto the tour level. And sort of, at times it was hard, you know, working for different academies. You know, you're coaching adult players, you're doing private lessons, you go through this long journey. And when I was younger, it used to be frustrating because you're always trying to, you know, get somewhere or achieve something, and maybe you didn't want to teach these little 4-year-old kids or whatever the process was at the time. But now when I look back, I'm very thankful for that process and that journey, because it taught me a lot, and I learned even more. And I think it helped me to be a better coach by going through literally every single step of the way. It gives me a great background and a great understanding of all the levels of the game, which I think is also very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Hanan, how was that transformation? You know, you have a big vision, you have a big will, of course, commitment for sure, you work hard. How many difficulties you did find in your process?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was quite challenging because, you know, to coach in the, let's say, high performance space, or the sort of elite international level, even of the juniors, but especially at the professional level, most of the tennis federations, big academies, professional players, or parents of the best juniors in the world, they're sort of always looking for a person that was a former top player, top 100, top 50, even top 10, to be the coach or to be the leader of their organization. So that was a big challenge for me to overcome on the journey, and sort of felt like I had to, in many ways, work a lot harder and try to make myself the best I could possibly be, and just almost be better as a coach than some of my, let's say, competitors or rivals when it came to getting opportunities or positions or things like that, and sort of really prove myself. And again, it was a really hard road, a really hard journey. And you know, the amount of times I had agents of players tell me, oh no, sorry, they're only interested in working with someone who was, you know, formerly top 10 or top 20 player in the world, or, you know, things like that. It was incredible, but just that sort of passion and drive to keep going and pursue the goal and keep learning and improving. I was able to sort of, through my career, have a lot of very interesting roles and opportunities, and prove that I was capable. So yeah,
that's very important. And also talking about learning, you know, because we have in our audience parents, we have tennis people, fans, coaches from all over the world. Which are the key opportunities to learn like a coach? Which other field, let's say, you have to learn to be prepared? Because mostly people think that it's only about the game. No, you need to be a complete person, not to what it takes to be a high performance people.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the starting point that I'm a big fan of is the sort of more formal coach education processes, going through different courses and seminars and taking the different coaching exams and learning about sports science and psychology and studying to a certain degree to educate yourself, improve your knowledge. Then for me, I was extremely fortunate in my career that I was able to work with and spend time with some people that just helped me tremendously. People like Dennis Vandermeer when I first started coaching, Tommy Thompson, who was one of the great coaches at the time at the Harry Hopman Tennis Academy. He taught me so much. People like Pat Etcheberry, who was a pioneer in the sort of strength and conditioning and early stages of bringing sports science more to tennis. Great former player like Harold Solomon, and a fantastic coach like Carlos Rodriguez, just to name a few. You know, I was also very fortunate to spend a lot of time with a lot of former Australian top players and some of the greats of Australian tennis history when I was at Tennis Australia. And I just think having an open mind to talk to these people and listen and learn, I think it's invaluable. And I certainly have been very fortunate to have learned so much from so many incredible people that sort of helped teach me and shape me as to how to be better in the high performance, or be a high performance person. I think as well, another key element is to learn from your players. I think that's something that as a young coach, I didn't really value that enough. And then as you get a bit older and you've been on the tour or you've been around players longer, you start to understand that when they express that they're feeling something, or they're trying to explain or say something, that even if they're not explaining it clearly or the right way, try to listen and understand, because a lot of the time they're right in what they're saying. And through my journey, I've actually learned a lot from the players that I've coached. Probably I've learned as much from them as I've taught them, you know. So it's I think that's really important, to have that open mind to those things.
Yeah, it's very, very important. And which is very important is to have the right context and also be curious, because for sure you keep moving to find this kind of people and to keep learning. No, I think Liam, you are an example of someone that is always learning, always developing himself, you know, and trying to be better, you know, which is very good for our.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, you know, you look at players, Roger Federer had the famous quote where he talks about, if you're not improving, you're actually going backwards. And I think even as a coach, even however level you reach and whatever you've achieved, there's always more to do, more to learn, or you can improve a little bit in your skills or how you deliver or how you communicate. So I think, yeah, just that constant trying to improve yourself as a person, I think is very important.
Absolutely, because always behind the tennis player, behind the tennis coach is the human being, no? Like you say. Let me ask you, Liam, about your coaching principles. which are the main principal concept that you apply when you are, of course, depending the player, but which are the main structure that you apply when you are working with some top professional?
Well, I mean, for me, it's always to put the athlete first, to make sure that they know that, you know, your number one priority is what's best for them as a player, but more importantly, as a person. I think when you're coaching younger players or top juniors, or I think it's very important as well to be a good role model and to set good examples, to be a good leader and try to hold them accountable to being good people. Because, you know, young kids, they make mistakes, teenagers can be difficult. And I think it's just very important to make sure that you always keep that sort of moral compass, no matter what they're doing, that you're always keeping them in check and trying to help them to be better people. So that's a big one for me. Trying to be as positive as possible, I think is very important. And for me as a coach, I've always lived by a sort of mantra of, I feel that everything I do has to have a specific purpose and direction. I'm not a big believer in just going out there and just banging balls around and doing this and that. I feel like you need to have a purpose. You need to have a certain specificity as to what you're trying to do. And I think if you communicate that well to players, they improve at a much faster rate because they feel like everything they're doing has a value and a purpose and is very specific to what they need or them as a person or even their game style. So I think that's a big one for me. And I would say that also being willing to work extremely hard is a very important aspect. I think a lot of players these days, and coaches maybe too sometimes, they don't always put the level of work in line with the level of their goals. And I think it's very important that if you set high goals, you have to be really willing to do what's necessary and make sure that the work and the process reflects the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be ready to pay the price, no?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what do you consider like a key concept that every coach must to develop to be, you know, in the process to be a high performing person?
Well, I think it's very important to have passion for the game. You have to be passionate. I think you have to be very driven. Coaching sometimes it can be very tough. You know, you don't always. Sometimes it's a thankless job in some ways. So that passion for the game and that passion for helping people to achieve things that maybe they're not even sure they're capable of at the time is really important. And I think also just a certain amount of empathy is an important aspect, and just that drive to find those small things, those 1% improvements, whether it be in yourself to then be able to help your players, that constant sort of searching and drive to improve and reach higher and higher levels and achieve more and more goals, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about the relationship with the player, how is your communication process? Now, how you key aspect that you can talk a little bit about how you create an environment of communication with not only with the player and also because it's a team around also with the player, no?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's something that's really important that you are able to learn and get to learn about and get to know the person, because almost every player, every athlete, they're a little bit different. They have different personalities, they have different things driving them, they have different backgrounds and cultures. And so taking the time to really get to know the person really can help you to improve your communication. And being flexible, I think, you know, a lot of coaches, and even myself when I was young, you almost, or when I was starting out, you sort of have that more of a generic approach where you're sort of doing the same with everyone. And then over time you realize, well, this player needs a bit more of this, and this kid needs a little bit more of that. And I read an amazing book from Phil Jackson, The 11 Rings. And to me, it was just an incredible book and an incredible person, and the way he went about understanding his players and finding the best way to communicate with them and to get the best out of them purely through understanding and knowing who they are a lot more. So I think that's a key aspect. there can be some great communicators out there, but if you don't really know the person and you don't find a way to connect with them, then the communication is never going to be as effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And today the coach, the main coach like you is like a director of one orchestra, no? Because you have different people around the player. How you manage, with the physio, with a physical trainer, with the agents, how you manage that, the communication process?
This is a difficult one. Sometimes it depends on the team, the dynamics of the team and the people involved. Obviously, communication is the key. Having everybody on the same page, mutual respect, I think, is very important, to be able to listen to one another and value each other's opinions. And I think also in these team environments, a certain amount of, not necessarily conflict, but a certain amount of healthy disagreement is good, because you're going to have a physio that wants to protect. You're going to have a strength and conditioning coach that wants to push. You're going to have a coach that wants to get the most time on the court or the most out of the player. And I think it's just when you have a little bit of that healthy sort of disputes and discussions, that's a good thing. For me, myself, in my coaching, I personally prefer to be more of the team leader, that I can sort of lead the team and control a lot of the things. So that's always an important one for me. I do believe that when it comes to at least a tennis player, just like the manager of a professional soccer team or an NBA basketball team, I feel like the coach has to have the sort of overarching leadership and in a way control along with the player, obviously, because at the professional level, there's that element of cooperation. But I prefer to be in the more sort of team leader position. But it's not an easy dynamic sometimes. And you usually see that when a team gets it right and everything around the player is really in a great way, that's when you see the best results.
Yeah. You can feel the energy, you can feel it's like
and everyone is working to that same goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like a tsunami coming, no? You feel something.
And these teams tend to stay together the longest because they're successful, but they also have that ability to work together really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question, because I want to make you a question, you are doing a lot with the ATP committee, coaches committee for the game, but last question about communication. How you deal when you have some struggle or some difficult situation with the player? How you approach? You change your approach, you manage your timing. How is usually what you do?
Well, I've always tried to ensure that I tell the player the truth and be very honest and open with them. And sometimes that can be tough. That can be hard to have those conversations and tell the hard facts. Sometimes it can be quite confronting and difficult. So timing is everything, right? I mean, it's like, you've got to pick the right moment where you feel like the player is in a receptive mood. And again, if you know the person well, then you pick the right moment to deliver that maybe dose of honesty or that hard truth or that reality check in the right moment at the right time. And you also, having built the relationship with the player over time, there's that element of trust where they almost appreciate the fact that you're willing to tell them as it is. And that's the way you go about it. But it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes the player gets upset. Sometimes you think you've got the right time and it just didn't work out the right time. And this is the thing with tennis. But I'm not one of the coaches that tries to sugarcoat things or avoid the conversation. I think it's important to be honest with the players. And even if that means that they say, oh, I don't like this idea, bye-bye, I think you're better to be true to yourself on that aspect as well.
Yeah, you have to be in the same line with yourself, no? You have to respect yourself, which is very important, Liam.
I think that's the most important thing as a coach, actually. That a lot of coaches, and certainly when I was younger, you try to be almost too accommodating or too careful with the player, and sometimes just the players respect the openness and the honesty, and they want to know the truth, because if they're really a good player and they really want to become a better player, they've got to hear it. They've got to know, and It's just how you deliver it is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the game, no? Our game, and you are involved in the ATP Coaches Committee, working a lot. Let me tell us a little bit about how it works, because there are a lot of work behind the scenes, and that's how the ATP Coaches Committee is working right now. And of course, you are part, like with Claudio Pistolesi and Daniel Valverdu, how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it was an honor to be elected by my peers, the other ATP members and coach members, to serve on the committee. Claudio Pistolesi is sort of the, if you like, the grandfather of the ATP coach program, sort of introducing it and getting it going 10 or 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now. And the program is just growing and growing all the time. So it's been amazing to join him and Danny Valverdu on the committee, and we do a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of communication with players, talking to players on the Players Council, ATP board members, and you know, sometimes we have to ask the tough questions, and we have to play a bit of devil's advocate and sort of hold the ATP staff or people accountable for certain things and ask the tough questions. And it's not always easy, but we certainly do it in good faith. And we certainly try to work together to get the coaches' voices, all the ATP coaches out there, their voices heard by the ATP staff and the board and the Players Council, and try to just advance the game as much as we can, and the perspective of the coaches, to help the coaches on the tour to have better circumstances, better situations, and add value to the game wherever we can. So it's really it's fun, but it's also quite hard sometimes.
Yeah, but it's good. It's good because many things is happening right now for our game. And talking about that, what do you think about the coaching role? Because the ATP approved a trial to have the coaching role in the box, and you know, there are many coaches and players approving that. But which is your opinion about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've put a lot of time and effort and work into that, and especially Claudio Pistolesi, who started this process about 10 years ago, and more recently Danny Valverdu as the coach representative on the Player Council has really done a lot of work to improve and get a better understanding around the need for this and why it would be a good thing. Myself, I'm in favor of it, but I do understand the perspective of some of the former players and other coaches, where they might say, look, tennis is about one-on-one problem solving, handling your emotions, figuring things out on your own, and being able to be, and if you're better at those skills, you're going to be a better player and you're going to win more matches. And I totally get that, and I do believe in that part as well. The only thing I would say is that in the modern game, and I don't know 50 years ago, but certainly the last 20 years, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of matches as a coach on the tour, and coaching is going on. I mean, there's verbal comments, there's signals, there's non-verbal, there's conversations in different languages, there's all sorts of things going on anyway. So it's almost like, well, in a way, by legalizing it, you take some pressure off the chair umpire, you put some rules around it, so maybe you can actually control things a little bit better. And it might in the future lead to be quite an interesting experience for the fans. It might raise the level of some matches where a player's just not figuring it out, or they're just completely emotionally tapping out, and the coach is able to just raise the level and produce a better show. So I think it's a good thing. The ATP Next Gen Finals, they tried a few different ways of doing it, with headphones and different things, and it was quite interesting. And then the ATP Cup, we had a situation where, a little bit like Davis Cup, on the changeovers, the player could sit with their captain or coach and discuss. And I just think both those trials, they went really, really well. The US Open had a trial as well in the qualifying. So did the Australian Open, where the players could have, basically coaches could talk to players when they're on their end. So it's the same situation. And I think it's a good thing. I think in the future, if it's done the right way and it's properly handled, I think it will be a good addition.
And definitely, which is very right, what you are saying is bringing transparency, credibility to our sport, because we know that coaching is part of the game in some way, in some way
Absolutely.
And probably it's more open to talk about it, create a space, create environment, create the rules, and it's part of the evolution of the game. Because like you said before, even the player will take the last decision. It's like a consultant. You can say someone to someone, and an opinion and advice, but even though the player is taking the final decision. No?
For sure. And I can tell you, even from a coaching perspective, the amount of times I have advised a player to do certain things, serve to this spot on a big point, or cover this serve on the big point, and somehow they don't do it anyway. So I don't feel like people talk about it's not a video game and it's not a team sport where the coaches are orchestrating the plays, and I don't think tennis is ever going to be like that. And obviously, even advice that you give to a player in between points, at the end of the day, once that point starts and they're pushed into the backhand corner and they're here and they're there, they're still having to make the decisions of the shot selections and figure things out on their own. I mean, it's not like you're coaching them shot by shot. It's maybe a couple of words, it's encouragement, it's a little bit of advice or something in between. And I think that this is good for the game. And I think in the long term, it will grow the profile of the coaches more. And it will also, I think, make the coaches more valuable, because there's some players on the tour that don't have a coach. Well, maybe that's going to become a disadvantage in the future.
Yeah.
And I think it will also help us to raise the professionalism of coaching, so that you have more experienced, educated, qualified professionals coaching, as opposed to friends or buddies or parents or boyfriends or girlfriends of players that maybe don't have the same level of experience or expertise. I think it will just help in general the whole coaching community, and it'll trickle down to all the levels of the game eventually, I think. So yeah. I see it as a positive.
Yeah. And from our stand and our position, it's a very good for the game, because like I say, in terms of the overall picture, it's bringing transparency and credibility, and also it's helping to create a very healthy relation with the player without any trick. That's I say. How do you see right now the game? How we can keep improving in other areas? What do you consider?
I mean, I think the game is in a great situation. We've got three, four legends out there playing, and I just think that there's a lot of positive things. We've got this next generation of players coming through that are just fantastic. Iga Swiatek has been so impressive this last 4 or 5 months. It's been incredible to watch, and then obviously what Rafa's doing. So I think there's a lot of great things in the game. I just think what we can continue to improve is improve how we use innovation and technology, improve how we're delivering the sort of product and the fan experience to really try to raise the excitement level of tennis to the general population, and to maybe convert some more tennis fans. I think that would be a really great thing in the future. So just using technology and innovation to help reach more of a wider audience would be I think really great for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot to do to keep improving in our game. Let me ask you, Liam, a couple more questions, because we can talk by hours about our sport, But you are doing a lot, to create different projects. Which is next for you? Because you are a very focused person, a very professional person. Which is the next step coming?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the ATP Coach Committee, we're always working on things and trying to give back. I'm trying to do the best job I can to help with coach education. So I have the online website platform, lcstennis.com, with some coach education content. We also translated it to Chinese, so it's available in China in Chinese as well, which has been actually quite popular. And now I'm trying to look at ways to help the next generation of players, and potentially opening a new tennis program, a center of excellence in South Florida, to try to help develop not just the next generation of players, but also to help mentor and develop more coaches, because I think it's really important that in our sport, the better level of coaches we have, even at the lower level of the game where kids are just entering, the more impact we make, and the better that those young players are going to improve and learn the game and love the game. And I think that's really important. So yeah, trying to get this new project off the ground. It's going to be called the Limitless Center of Excellence, and quite excited about this project.
Yeah, very, very nice challenge, and for sure will help a lot of players coming out from there. Last question, which is coming from the first one, more personal. Let me ask you, are you enjoying your journey like a coach?
Yeah, I think it's sport. You have ups and downs and highs and lows, and sometimes you love it and sometimes you're like just frustrated. But I think as a general, yeah, it's an amazing sport, and being able to be a part of it and coach players and see players improve, see kids that learn to love the game, and I think it's wonderful. So yes, overall, it's a very enjoyable journey, and a long way to go, I hope.
Yeah, for sure. You have to do a lot. I keep doing a lot for our game. Many thanks to be on the Tennis Talk, the Coaches Voice episode, which is a place where coaches can talk about themselves, about the insights and the purpose that they have. Many thanks for all the things that you are doing for our game, Liam. And it was a privilege for us to have you.
Oh, thank you. It was great to talk with you and be on today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Liam.
Thanks.
I am Alberto Castellani, President of GPTCA, Global Professional Tennis Coach Association. Learn from the best ATP coaches in the world. I hope that at the end of this course you will learn a lot of things. I hope that I will see you on the circuit with your player. This is the goal.